Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. If you haven't already done so, please make sure the volume of this podcast is set perfectly to your listening enjoyment. Please take your seat, whether that's on the treadmill, car, sofa, or bed, and buckle in for the last trip. My name is Jamie Beebe, and I'll be your tour guide recreating someone's last days in paradise. On behalf of myself and everyone behind the scenes, please enjoy the Last Trip podcast. And because nobody likes a long flight to get to where they want to be, let's prepare for takeoff. This episode is a little different from others I've done, because while I tried to be neutral, I honestly found it difficult to like today's victim, if you believe he's a victim. This episode includes discussions about suicide, which may be distressing or triggering for some listeners. If you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, please prioritize your mental health and consider whether you feel able to listen to this content. If you choose to proceed, please do so with care and consider having support available. If you need help, please reach out to a mental health professional or contact a helpline in your area. You are not alone. Ryan Roth, whose real name is Ryan Flynn, disappeared on January 20th, 2020, from a cliff in Bali, Indonesia. The 39-year-old, originally from Southampton, England, left behind his passport, driver's license, a suicide note, and other personal belongings at the scene. However, many people, including Indonesian authorities, suspect that Ryan staged his disappearance to resemble a suicide and is actually on the run. His uncle, Sean Flynn, has been searching for him since then, and he will be the subject of a new documentary coming out soon. This episode is wild and takes place at one of my favorite spots in the world. So let's jump in. Although our victim was quite the traveler, we're going to focus on his last known trip, Bali, Indonesia. And Bali is one of my favorite places. I spent a month there last year and absolutely loved it. The people are amazing, the weather, the food, and best of all, I felt really safe there. Bali is often referred to as the island of the gods, and the name fits. It's one of Indonesia's most famous and beloved tourist destinations. There are beautiful beaches, mountains, volcanoes, and iconic terraced rice paddies. In this episode, I'll tell you about some of my favorite spots in Bali. First of all, it's a paradise for photography. They literally have people you can hire that will travel around the island with you and take photos. And they have photographers waiting to take your pictures at almost every tourist stop. And they take great photos. It was awesome for me because I traveled there solo and still got some amazing photos that didn't involve me setting up my tripod. I'll post them on Patreon if you guys want to check them out. An amazing spot is the Tigalaling rice terraces in Ubud. They're lush green terraces with dramatic layered landscapes. The early morning or late afternoon lighting is perfect for photos. When I went, I felt it was a little bit touristy, considering I took a zip line through the rice fields, but it was still pretty great. There were a lot of families and crying children and tons of people taking photos, but hiking through the fields and going a little further than most of the families was well worth the quiet beauty of the area. The village of Tigalaling, where the rice fields are located, has been a center of rice cultivation for centuries. These terraced fields were carved into the hillside to maximize land in the hilly terrain. And the terraces are passed down through generations to keep the traditional farming techniques preserved as part of Bali's cultural heritage. The irrigation method they used is called the subak system, and it's a traditional cooperative irrigation method that dates back to the 9th century. It was developed to manage the flow of water from the mountain springs and rivers to the rice fields. And it's deeply intertwined with Balinese Hinduism. The water temples are considered sacred, and farmers conduct rituals and ceremonies to honor the goddess Dewi Sri, the goddess of rice and fertility, seeking her blessing for a bountiful harvest. Next up, the Gates of Heaven are a really well-known landmark and well worth the hours-long wait just to get a photo. It's the iconic photo between the two giant gates with a mirrored ground and the beautiful Mount Agung visible in the background. But again, it's turned into a bit of a tourist destination. The gates date back over 1,000 years, possibly around the 10th century, and are part of the oldest and most revered temples on the island. That's definitely worth a visit, but the whole photo taking ceremony was a little out of the element of what the gates mean to the people of the island. When I arrived, I was given a number for the photo line. Then I bought a wrap, and the woman there helped to cover my shoulders and legs before heading up toward the gates and the temple. After walking up a big hill, I basically sat around for a couple hours while people took their photos until it was my turn. You can buy water and walk around. Just pay attention to the numbers they're calling out because they move people through as fast as they can. If you miss your number being called, you lose your spot in line. When they called my number, I walked up, gave my cell phone to the guy taking photos, and he did a video as I walked to the gates. Then used a mirror under the camera to get the effect to look like I was standing on water. You get 5 super quick poses, then they call the next person's number. The photos were definitely iconic and memorable, but it is still an active place of worship, and not just a place for a photo op, so be very respectful. The Turtaganga Water Palace is located in East Bali and another gorgeous landmark with beautiful water gardens, ornamental ponds, and sacred springs. It was built by the Karangasem royal family in 1948 and is not only a cultural landmark, but also a place of spiritual significance. Now, if you go, dress modestly, and in the most sacred areas, you need to wear a sarong and sash, which can be rented or purchased at the entrance. It's also a beautiful and tranquil place, so people need to keep the noise to a minimum. And although photography is generally allowed, be mindful of areas where locals are conducting rituals or ceremonies. Ubud Monkey Forest is another must-visit place in Bali. It's a sacred monkey sanctuary, and the monkeys are running around totally free. There are over 700 long-tailed maks, dense forests, ancient temples, and stone statues. Now, the monkeys are generally safe to be around, but they are wild animals and can be unpredictable. They're fed regularly by staff and visitors, so they aren't scared of people. And they will steal anything you don't have completely locked down, like sunglasses, anything in your pockets, down your shirt, small bags, anything they can grab, they will. Also, keep a safe distance unless instructed by people that work there. And avoid direct eye contact with them because that can be perceived as a threat. Now, the Bali swing is a must-do for any Instagrammer. There are a bunch of them, so try to find the one called the original Bali swing. When you get there, you can rent a gorgeous long dress in any color. Then they usher you to each photo op with plenty of workers that take amazing photos, and they'll guide you along in how to stand and pose. It's a neat way to get a memorable photo, but not much else. The last time I was in Bali, I stayed in a gorgeous treehouse at Firefly Eco Lodge. And while I was there, I asked one of the workers to introduce me to a shaman or medicine man to tell me about my future. He took me to his personal shaman, and it was an amazing experience. First, we bought a baby coconut to take with us. And when we got to the temple, everyone asked to make sure I wasn't on my period, because women can't go into the temple if they're menstruating. It was awkward because everyone at the temple asked, but also necessary. After arriving, a woman came out and dressed me in traditional clothing. I took off my shoes, and they gave me some tea to drink. The shaman came out, and we used my guide as a translator. First, he looked at my hands and started drawing on a piece of paper to see how much black magic I had inside me. Luckily, there wasn't much. After that, he chanted and broke the coconut, sprinkled some on me, and then had me drink the rest. Then he told me I'd get married that year and have 2 children, a son and a daughter. He also told me that I need to focus on one business idea at a time rather than trying to do too much. Now, the year has passed without a marriage, And being 46 years old, I don't see 2 children in my future. But hey, you never know. Back to the case at hand. Ryan Roth's personal belongings were found at a clifftop in Uluwatu, near Pikatu Village and Uluwatu Temple. Uluwatu is a gorgeous beachside area with dramatic cliffs and amazing beaches. I stayed there for a bit on my last trip and found it to be a little less touristy with more of a surfer vibe. And it is a global surfing hotspot, attracting surfers from around the world. There are consistent and powerful waves that break over coral reefs, and the main surf break is legendary. With so many surfers in the area, it has a laid-back vibe, numerous surf camps, shops, and schools offering lessons, equipment rentals, and also lots of beachside cafes and bars. Now, Uluwatu and Pikatu Village are in the southernmost part of Bali. The terrain is rugged, and the cliffs overlook the Indian Ocean. Pikatu Village is a very traditional community that continues to practice religious ceremonies, and it's known for its spiritual atmosphere because it's so close to the Uluwatu Temple. And the Uluwatu Temple is an active site of worship, where locals regularly conduct ceremonies and rituals. You are able to visit, but of course, it's important to dress respectfully by wearing a sarong and sash, which is usually provided at the entrance. Ryan's things were found on the towering limestone cliffs near Pikatu. The cliffs extend all along the southwestern coast of the Bukit Peninsula, giving it a dramatic landscape. And from the top of the cliffs, you can see a panoramic view of the Indian Ocean. Let's get to know Ryan Roth and see where this case lands us after a message from our sponsors.
Are you into podcasts about missing people, cold cases, and true crime? I'm Renee Robertson, host and creator of the podcast Missing in the Carolinas. The show is an original podcast that features people you might have heard of, such as Heather Elvis, who went missing from South Carolina in December of 2013, and others you might not have heard of, like Enrique Roman Martinez, who disappeared while camping with fellow soldiers from Fort Bragg at the Cape Lookout National Seashore Memorial Day weekend 2020. I also dig deep into the news archives for stories like Diane Gabriel, the North Carolina real estate agent who vanished after making an appointment to look at a house on the shores of Lake Norman in 1983. Look for Missing in the Carolinas wherever you get your podcasts.
Ryan Roth was born Ryan Flynn in Southampton, England in 1980. Ryan's father was a traveler who wasn't around much and never married his mother, although both him and his brother came out of that relationship. They were basically raised by a single mom and their grandmother. When looking to understand who Ryan was as a kid, I stumbled across a Reddit thread where a few of his childhood friends were discussing their thoughts about him, and really no one had anything nice to say. One person wrote, "He wasn't bright at all. Quite the opposite. He was a loner, not popular or particularly liked. He would almost appear cold and would emulate emotions to fit into the group. People he believed he could manipulate, he would. Classic sociopath." Another person called him a classic narcissist with sociopathic tendencies, even at an early age. In the bio on Ryan's personal website, which is still up to this day, he wrote that he studied law and psychology at a university in the UK, and he was an entrepreneur from an early age, starting his first business at 11 years old. But he never graduated from school, and the business he started was a paper route that he subcontracted to other kids, so he would basically take a cut of their money while they did the work. He called himself an entrepreneur and humanitarian with charisma and model good looks that started traveling the world at the age of 21, living in London, Paris, Tokyo, Bangkok, Sydney, Auckland, and Los Angeles. He wrote that he had success as a tennis coach, art consultant, investment advisor, and founder of a global marketplace for coffee farmers. He also worked as a writer, sponsorship director, event planner, curator, and film festival board member. But as you find throughout this episode, his good looks might have been the only thing he actually had, and even that's up for debate. He claimed to speak French, Japanese, Spanish, Mandarin, Korean, and Balinese. And his hobbies included playing rugby, cricket, cooking, kite surfing, snowboarding, snowshoeing, rock climbing, running, swimming, and boxing. Ryan often liked to describe himself as always the smartest person in the room. He liked to go to a group of people and pick out abstract political or metaphilosophical topics to be discussed with mind-blowing confidence. Picking a topic so far out and abstract makes you appear genius in front of the average Joe crowd, according to Ryan. Now, everything I'm about to get into with Ryan's business ventures is alleged, because he has not been charged or convicted of anything, although the Australian authorities would like to speak with him. Ryan's money schemes started with his own grandmother. From 1999 to 2002, he convinced her to give him her personal savings of £18,000. He claimed that the money would be invested in humanitarian business ventures and that it would be returned, but that's not what happened. Throughout the years, while Ryan was traveling and starting businesses worth millions, his grandmother repeatedly asked him for the money back, telling him she didn't have money to pay her bills, and even money for food was tight. In 2013, he finally sent her £50, and by July of 2015, he had paid back a total of £350 out of the $18,000 that he originally took. In a letter she wrote to him, found after her death, she wrote, "Thanks very much, Ryan, for letting me down. I have no money left now. I am worrying for the first time in 70 years. I trusted you and thought that you, of all people, would not let me down." The letter goes on to say that she had suffered ill health due to the stress of unpaid debts. And at the end she writes, "I lent you money left, right, and center, and not a penny back. Signed, Nan." But that was just the tip of the iceberg. In the early 2000s, Ryan allegedly became a drug dealer, where he eventually consumed a little too much of his own product, and this would result in him being hospitalized and put on a psychiatric hold. When he got out, he made his way to Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, he lived rent-free, couch hopping and conducting apartment scams. And this is when Ryan began his acting career, which he claims he was successful in. So much, in fact, that he stated he got 90% of the roles he auditioned for. But because he was not on the correct type of visa, he could not legally work on these roles. Ryan called California home base until around 2007, but he was traveling through the world nonstop during this time. And to fund these travels, he used money from apartment scams, borrowed money from women he dated, and established small companies that would dissolve after they were funded. One of these was Living Legends Ltd., established in 2006 and dissolved 3 years later in 2009. Around 2007 and 2008, he was in Australia and defrauded an elderly woman after convincing her to buy a 1970 penny for $8,100, essentially her life savings. And because of this, the Australian police are still looking for him. Also in Australia, he allegedly stayed with various women rent-free and borrowed large sums of cash without ever paying them back. This is around the time he started the White Orchid Fund. He claimed he was saving women from sex slavery and sex trafficking, but the whole thing was allegedly a scam, with one of his old friends writing on Reddit that the donations page had a PayPal link to Ryan's own Gmail account. He also tried to refer to himself by the nickname Rambo Ryan and told people it was because of all the women he was extracting by force, but that he didn't want to be looked at as a hero. Ryan allegedly accumulated around $500,000 in donations from this company. When Ryan got back to Los Angeles, the LAPD wanted to speak to him because a large number of credit cards and information from multiple PayPal accounts were found in one of the apartments he was scamming. But for some reason, they did not arrest him. Our Planet UK was another company set up in 2008 under the name Ryan Flynn. Investments were made in the company, but nothing came of it, and it was closed down just a year later. In November 2009, Ryan started Roth Management, a talent agency where he told aspiring actors and comedians that he could get them roles and publicity. But Ryan can't actually work in the United States, so this company could not legally operate and was later dissolved. From 2009 to 2012, he met his next girlfriend, Karen, in a Las Vegas strip club, where Ryan claimed that he owned several islands. He also showed interest in her band and became her manager. She said she didn't want any romantic involvement with him until she walked in on a staged suicide attempt and was manipulated into a relationship. While they were together, he managed to land an appearance on the TV show A Thousand Ways to Die, as well as a YouTube show called American Pranksters, which features Ryan playing a cockroach prank on Karen. He claimed to have been accepted into Actors and Writers Guilds and seemed to be doing well until Karen received a letter from the IRS and Department of Homeland Security. The letter explained that it is illegal to harbor or hire an illegal immigrant. This was because Ryan was not paying any taxes for all the businesses he was supposedly operating, and the IRS will always find you. From there, she broke up with him and he continued on his way. When Karen found out Ryan may have jumped from the cliff in Bali, she said, "I wish Ryan had the opportunity to be able to repay and make amends. It seems like he may have resorted to faking his own death in order to start over. I just hope he did not end his life." So after that breakup, Ryan's next stop was Japan. Towards the end of his relationship with Karen, he started talking to a Japanese model by the name of Yuki Matsumura. So he went there to be with her and live rent-free. While in Japan, he rebranded Roth Management from actors to artists and signed a well-known Korean painter named Min-jae Lee. And in 2013, he sold a man a painting of Kate Moss for $10,000, claiming that it was wanted by Madonna. Then, for years, never gave the man the painting, claiming it was in Los Angeles and he was holding onto it for an investment. The man figured the painting wasn't even real, but eventually got it back from an art dealer who said she was trying to sell it for him after news of Ryan's disappearance came out. Back in Los Angeles in 2014, Ryan Flynn changed his name to Ryan Roth because he believed he would have a better chance as an actor with the last name Roth. Being that he was never cast as a leading man in anything, the name change didn't seem to work for him. This same year, Ryan became the CEO of another company he created called Vagabond World Ltd, registered in the UK, providing services like graphic design, DJ management, and brand design. This company also had investors, and again was dissolved without anything happening. In 2016, he began an ethical coffee company named Malala Coffee. He apparently raised somewhere between $300,000 and $1 million in investments. He even told investors he had spoken at the UN. And in reading the comments from the Kickstarter page, it appears he sent out a couple bags of coffee and then disappeared. And the company never really materialized, but the money was somehow gone. At this same time, he moved into a new apartment with Yuki and her cat Kabu. It was often said he chose to become romantically involved with women to avoid paying rent. But on this occasion, he took it to a whole new level. It was in his relationship with Yuki that he staged one of several suicides. While in Bangkok, he wrote a suicide note to her saying, "I love you and I'm sorry for what I'm about to tell you. I'm going to end my life by taking some pills and falling asleep one last time. There is a cat backpack, which you will receive soon, and will be the last gift I give you both. Hopefully you will have many cat adventures with it. It has many see-through parts, so Kabu can look out into the world when you go outside with him or take him to the vet. Please give Kabu a little kiss from me and tell him I'm sorry that his father was not strong enough, and he's sorry he treated him so badly." But Ryan never took the pills. Before his relationship with Yuki ended, Ryan was having an affair with a woman named Pearlie, whose father was the CEO of a very large hotel chain. When Pearlie found out he lied and she was the other woman, she decided to tell Yuki about it. But somehow, Ryan turned it around, blaming Yuki, and ordered her to leave her own apartment, claiming he needed space due to mental health issues. After she left, he packed all her things into trash bags, threw her cat out onto the streets, and posted on Facebook that he had gotten engaged to Pearlie. He then told everyone that Malala Coffee hadn't succeeded because of Brexit, and he disappeared to Bali. In Bali, he started a new ethical coffee company named Kabu. He literally named his next company after his girlfriend's cat that he threw out onto the street. That takes some balls. The concept was described as catnip for investors, as it combined a social and environmental cause with real profit. While he claimed in his email signature that it was to lift 1 million people out of poverty. He then started dating Alice Yu from Hong Kong. They lived together in Bali, and she jumped in to help Ryan by giving him money and helping to run Kabu until late 2019. That's when she realized the company could be a scam. Ryan had been raising money, somewhere between $1 million and $4 million, and Alice discovered Ryan was hiding money in early January of 2020. She Google searched him only to discover his trail of scams. She confronted him, but rather than facing the music, Ryan disappeared and has not been seen since. Let's dive into Ryan's disappearance after a message from our sponsors. When Ryan went missing, he was living in a villa near the cliffs where his belongings were found. The night before Ryan's disappearance, he booked a flight for himself using his work email, leaving Denpasar, Bali at 9:30 p.m. on Monday, January 20th, 2020, and arriving in Singapore on Tuesday, January 21st, 2020 at 12:05 a.m. He booked it under the name Ryan Roth, but used a different passport number than what is assigned to his actual passport, which he left on the cliffs. Locals reportedly told police they saw his motorcycle on January 19th, so they suspect if he jumped, it was somewhere in the afternoon of the 19th. The clifftop is near Piktu village in Uluwatu, Bali, near the Uluwatu temple. It's a 500-foot cliff, and the bottom is covered in bushes and extremely difficult to reach, with the sea at least 100 feet away from the cliff. At the cliff's edge were Ryan's personal belongings. He left a towel and a bag containing his helmet, a bottle of alcohol, his license, his passport, and a letter. The letter reads as a suicide note to his girlfriend, Alice Yu. It read, "I'm sorry, Alice. I'm the man you fell in love with, but past things I never did make you feel like I was a stranger. I will always love you. None of this is your fault. Your old man." Adding both her email and phone number at the bottom of the note. But extensive searches of the area turned up nothing. No body, no clothing, nothing to indicate anyone fell or jumped off the cliff. The bushes below were left completely undisturbed, and the edge of the cliff would actually be too far to make it to the sea. Almost immediately, authorities started exploring the possibility that Ryan didn't jump or fall from the cliff, and the local police chief speculated about whether he was still alive. Hari Asi Purnomo, head of the Denpasar search team, said, "We went through all the procedures, but in the field, in fact, we found no victim or signs that led to the fall of a victim." Ryan has not been seen or heard from since January 20th, 2020, and his body has never been found. So did he jump from the cliff or merely hop a flight to Singapore? Ryan's uncle, Sean Flynn, has been searching relentlessly for him since he went missing, and he truly believes he's alive, and that it's only a matter of time until he finds him. He's so certain Ryan's alive that he recently followed his trail to Bali and several other countries on a new documentary coming out soon. Let's go over some theories in this case and what Sean has found in his search for Ryan Roth. Ryan's uncle, Sean Flynn, is a 61-year-old scuba diving instructor who is 100% confident that Ryan is still alive. Not because he has seen or heard from him, nobody has, But because he accuses his nephew of being a narcissist, psychopath, and serial fraudster who has conned people across the world out of multiple millions, and someone like that just isn't the type to take his own life. Sean believes Ryan took that flight to Singapore, and then with COVID and numerous fake passports, was able to travel freely for the last few years undetected. He also believes that Ryan would have been able to afford plastic surgery to continue hiding who he is. Sean determined that over $5 million vanished from Kabu Coffee, $1 million from Malala Coffee, $500,000 from White Orchid, and many smaller amounts from other companies that were dissolved after getting money from investors. When Sean went to Bali and spoke to the search and rescue team there, they told him they believed he never went over the cliff. Now, why do the rescue teams think the suicide was fake? Because the cliffs were at a 45-degree angle and covered in trees and bushes. And the sea is about 100 feet out from the cliff. He wouldn't have made it to the ocean. If someone had jumped, then the body would have easily been found. If for some reason he wasn't found, the smell of a body would have alerted people in the area in around 2 weeks. The police haven't closed the case because there is no body, no real evidence he jumped, the fact that he faked several other suicides, and he had a flight leaving the same day his things were found. Most people that know Ryan believe he faked his suicide, and even on social media, when his disappearance was reported, no one posted their condolences. I think that's partly because he conned so many people, and partly because no one believes he's dead. Another question that was raised is, where is his phone? It was not left at the scene with his things. Ryan was part of a group of friends on the app Telegram, and almost 1 year to the day after his disappearance, everyone in the group suddenly got notified that Ryan was back on Telegram. It's strange because an unused number doesn't get given out to anyone else in such a short amount of time. And how would they log in to Ryan's Telegram account? Also, a Facebook message, sent a year after Ryan disappeared, was marked seen within 30 minutes. And the website for Roth Management was updated more than 2 years after his apparent death. Ryan has never been convicted of a crime, but he is wanted by police in Australia over his 2008 fraud allegation, when he sold that 1970 penny for $8,100. So if Ryan is alive and in hiding, I think he's hiding from all the people he conned out of money rather than hiding from the police. Of course, there's the possibility that Ryan jumped. He had left several other suicide notes, but the preceding times could have been a cry for help. Many suicidal people give definite warnings of their intentions, and that could have been Ryan's warnings. But it also could have been Ryan's escape plan several times that didn't work, up until this time, when it did. One last theory is that Ryan was murdered. He scammed a lot of people out of a lot of money, so it's not out of the box that someone murdered him and staged his disappearance. But I agree with Sean that his nephew is still alive. I think he faked his suicide and used COVID and the money he stole to hide and possibly change his identity. Sean thinks he's hot on Ryan's trail, and he's possibly in Gifu, Japan. And if Ryan's out there, I hope he is found and held accountable for his actions. Visiting Bali is generally very safe. I've been there a few times as a solo female traveler and had no problems at all throughout the island, day or night. But of course, there is crime in every corner of the world, along with other dangers. Let's go over some tips on how to stay safe in Bali. Watch out for scams. Some common tourist scams are overpriced services, currency exchange fraud, and fake tour operators. So always agree on prices up front and use reputable service providers. Keep your valuables, including passports, money, and electronics, secure. Use a hotel safe and be mindful of your belongings in crowded areas to avoid pickpocketing. Bali's traffic can be chaotic, with narrow roads and a high number of motorbikes, like hundreds on the streets at any given time, seemingly going in every direction at once. The motorbikes are a great way to get around, but can also be extremely dangerous. Always wear a helmet if you're riding a motorbike, and consider hiring a local driver or using a reputable ride hailing app like Grab for transportation if you don't feel comfortable on a motorbike. Also, be extra cautious when crossing streets. The beaches are beautiful and amazing, but they can have strong currents and riptides. So always swim in designated areas with lifeguards and heed warning flags. If you're surfing, be aware of your skill level and the conditions and follow local guidelines. Bali is an island with both earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, so stay informed about local conditions, especially if you're visiting areas near active volcanoes like Mount Agung. In case of an earthquake, drop, cover, and hold on until the shaking stops. Bali is a predominantly Hindu island with deep cultural and religious traditions, so dress modestly, particularly when visiting temples, and always ask permission before taking photos of people, especially during ceremonies. Be cautious when interacting with animals, especially monkeys, which can be aggressive and carry diseases. Avoid feeding or provoking them, and secure your belongings when you visit areas where they are. Watch what you eat and drink. I cannot stress this enough. Bali belly is a term to describe the stomach issues that many travelers experience when visiting Bali. I've had it, and it's not fun at all. It's essentially a type of traveler's diarrhea caused by consuming contaminated food or water, or by exposure to unfamiliar bacteria and viruses. The most common cause is the ingestion of food or water that has been contaminated with E. coli or salmonella. And this can happen if the food is not prepared or stored properly, or if water used in food preparation is not safe for consumption. Be careful when you eat at street vendors or poorly maintained restaurants, and watch to see if the food has been left out for long periods of time. Watch for undercooked meats and raw foods that have not been washed properly. And definitely don't drink tap water. And even ice made from tap water can be a source of contamination. If you're planning to hike or explore remote areas, don't go alone. Inform someone of your plans, wear appropriate footwear, carry enough water, and be aware of your surroundings. No matter where you're traveling, make sure you inform someone about your plans before going anywhere. Tell someone reliable where you're going and what you'll be doing and when to expect you back. And my number one tip to staying alive on vacation is to pay attention to your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it isn't. Ryan Flynn, who also goes by Ryan Roth, Dr. Flynn, Dr. Ryan F. Roth, and many other aliases, is Caucasian, 6'1", usually has some stubble, curly brown hair, brown eyes, thick eyebrows, and long eyelashes. It's likely that Ryan is somewhere in Asia, but he could be anywhere in the world, and may have changed his appearance. If you've seen Ryan, or know where he may be, please contact Sean Flynn at info@freedomdiverscyprus.com. And Ryan, if you're listening, you're going to get caught and held accountable for your actions. So now is the time to come forward and do the right thing. And finally, remember to leave a review and rate this podcast 5 stars if you like the show. Or hell, even if you don't. But either way, feel free to let me know what you think. Please follow The Last Trip on Instagram at The Last Trip Crime Pod, and subscribe on Patreon to support the show. You'll get extra research, videos, photos, and updates, and even learn more about my personal travels. That's patreon.com/thelasttrippodcast. I'm Jamie Beebe, bringing you your last trip and signing off until the next one. Thanks for listening.